All of you, are you second and third generations? Who am I? Who am I? I am the only begotten daughter. Due to the fall of Adam and Eve, heaven has had to endure a painful and difficult providence. And through that providence, heaven has led the history of the providence of restoration through indemnity. This was the painful and difficult path heaven could not help but follow. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And God created Adam and Eve, lastly, to become the ancestors of humanity, and said, "This is good, this is beautiful." However, in particular, to Adam and Eve, God gave a responsibility. That responsibility consisted of them going through a period of growth and become absolutely one with God. Adam and Eve should have grown in this way. That is why the position where Adam and Eve would receive the blessing would be the position where God would become the true parent of humankind. That is the purpose behind God's creation of heaven and earth. That was God's dream. Unfortunately, Adam and Eve had a responsibility. But it's written in the Bible that maybe they fell to the temptation of Satan. Nonetheless, what happened is Adam and Eve allowed self-centered desire, self-centeredness to take over. It is the same with you. As a blessed children, second and third generations of blessed families, your essence is true parents. If you cannot go away from true parents, outside of true parents, there is no value to your existence. Do you understand? Even all of you who have been blessed, as blessed children, you have a responsibility. That responsibility consists of becoming perfected human beings to receive the blessing. Until you grow and reach that level, of course, you should listen to the words of your parents. But more importantly, you must become absolutely one with true parents, wherever you may be, whether you are studying, whether you are developing your talents and abilities. You should always think this way. I am doing this such and such. And I would like to offer this to true parents. I would like this to be for true parents. What do true parents wish of me? Is this what true parents would like me to do? If true parents want this, I will take responsibility for this area and be victorious and successful for true parents. That kind of desire, that kind of ambition is good. However, if you allow self-centeredness, self-centeredness leads to anger. Do you understand? Remember that. Do you understand? To fallen human beings' greatest wish is to meet true parents. to be saved through true parents. That is the greatest wish of fallen human beings, whether they are aware of the providence or not. They want to stand in this position of absolute unity with the true owner. Fallen human beings have waited for that true owner. And this is the same everywhere around the world. And we can see through the development of the four major religions that God has developed this providence. And we can say that Christianity played a central role in this providence. Why? Because Christianity could not fully explain God, but Christians believed in God as their Father. Originally, God created heaven and earth, and the purpose of creation was to become the parent of humanity. And even though Christianity cannot fully explain the parent-child relationship, Christianity sees God as the Father. However, in the grand scheme of God's creation, beginning with the smallest protozoa all the way to human beings, God created everything in pairs. God also created human beings in pairs. If that is the case, God is the heavenly parent. It's not just the single heavenly Father alone. Isn't that so? So, when we look at the history of the providence of restoration through indemnity, in the fallen satanic world, at least the chosen people, the people who had a messianic ideology, God worked through those people and has developed the history of the providence of restoration through indemnity, beginning with the individual, the family, the tribe, the people, the nation. And that process of reaching the nation was so painful and arduous that it took 4,000 biblical years. 4,000 biblical years. How painful must this providence have been that it took so long? America is about 240 years old, isn't it? God, in the fallen world, sent His only begotten Son, whom He called My Son. It took 4,000 biblical years for God to send His only begotten Son. This is a truly unbelievable pain from God's perspective. However, Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, did not understand the providence. She did not understand how it came that she gave birth to Jesus. And she created the result, an outcome that led to Jesus' birth, not fulfilling its purpose. It is the same with Zechariah's family, Joseph's family, the Jewish people, the people of Israel. All of them waited and yearned, asked God to send them the Messiah, and heaven kept its promise. Heaven sent the Messiah, but the people could not attend the Messiah properly. Their mentality was that a strong commander would come with fire and brimstone to overturn the entire fallen world, conquer all the other places outside of Israel, and stand as the grand commander. Maybe that is what they expected of a Messiah. But that is not the mission of the Messiah. The history of the providence of restoration through indemnity is so complex and difficult. Why did God, who is almighty, omnipotent, He can act as He wishes, but why did He let go of Adam and Eve? And why did it may have been easier if God just erased Adam and Eve and made a fresh start. But why did he persist in saving human beings?
하나님은 실패가
God
없으신
cannot be a failure. Failure cannot exist in God's dictionary.
그런데
However,
인간에게만 특별한
God gave a special love to human beings, and that love is the human portion of responsibility.
그래서
Therefore,
예수님 주변에
the people in the vicinity of Jesus, people entrusted with protecting Jesus, could not develop the proper protective environment for Jesus.
마리아 책임 못했어.
Mary failed in her responsibility. However, today in the Catholic Church, Mary is considered a holy mother.
예수님은
Jesus
십자가에 매달아
is portrayed as hanging on the cross. For 2,000 years, Jesus has been portrayed as hanging on the cross. How is it possible that God prepared for 4,000 years to send the only begotten Son? How is it possible that Jesus could not live 100 years on this earth and at the young age of 33 had to be crucified on the cross? Do you consider this salvation? I believe this is really a testament to human ignorance.
이렇게 하나님은
God
아픔을
has had
견디며
to endure so much pain and suffering and yet prepare for the future
다시
and try again.
하신 것이 2000년
And
기독교의 섭리
through
역사인데
2,000 years of Christian history, God has worked to develop the providence.
하나님을 몰라.
And unfortunately, Christianity still does not fully understand God. It's a very external understanding of God. They see God as the Father and they consider themselves to be servants of the Lord. They consider themselves to be
뭔지를 몰라.
servants. They do not understand the essence of the relationship with God.
왜
Why
다시 오시는
is
메시아를
the returning
기다려야 하는지
Messiah so important? Why are we waiting for the returning Messiah? Christians are
하루아침에
ignorant
세상에
of this
바뀌어서
truth.
다른 세상이
They think that one day overnight
된다고
the world will change and a new world will appear overnight. This kind of fantasy-like thinking, not rooted in logic.
이치에 안 맞는
This does not agree with natural order.
한마디로
In other words, ignorance,
무지
complete ignorance.
기독교야.
Christians have been ignorant of God's providence.
2000년 기독교 섭리
The
역사는
2,000-year history of the providence of God centering on Christianity, from God's point of view, this 2,000-year history has been the providence to find the only begotten daughter. You need to fully understand this point.
예수님이 십자가에 돌아가시면서
As Jesus laid on the cross, he promised to come again.
다시 와서는
Why would he come again? It is to host the marriage of the Lamb.
잔치하려면
To host a marriage,
상대가
you need the bride, isn't it?
이렇게 다 알 수
So,
있게끔
Jesus
말씀하셨고
gave the message, the word, so that everyone could fully understand. Nonetheless, Christians,
뭐라 그럴까?
how can I say it? They are blind. They have been blind to Jesus' message.
그래서
And that is why
다시 오시는
the
메시아
returning Messiah, before the returning Messiah,
반드시
there must absolutely be a person, and that person is the only begotten daughter.
그것이
That is,
여러분들이 보고 있는 나다.
it's me who is standing right here in front of you.
역사적인 증거를
So,
통해서 내가 설명해 줄게.
I would like to explain this to you through historical facts and also historical records. God has led the history of the providence of restoration and has appointed central figures throughout this providence. Every time God has appointed central figures because as human beings with their limited understanding cannot fully explain God, and that is why God has appointed central figures who could explain better who God was. And if the central figure fails in his or her responsibility, God would forgive but not use or work through that person again. The person who fails in his responsibility must pay indemnity. It is the same for the nation. The people of Israel sent Jesus to the cross, and the moment Jesus was crucified, the value of the nation was lost. You need to understand that. Even today, in American streets, you can see people, for example, Jewish believers, dressed in Orthodox clothes walking in the streets. For 2,000 years, they have lived without a particular nation. And also, how is it possible that during World War II, and because of Hitler of Germany, 6 million Jews were mercilessly massacred? This is such a terrible, unimaginable crime. However, why did this happen? The Jewish people do not understand. Why did heaven allow such a heinous crime to happen? The God of humanity has worked for 4,000 biblical years, gone through so many pains to send the only begotten Son, Jesus, so that Jesus could meet the only begotten daughter, and through Jesus Christ becoming true parents, God would become the true parent of humanity. But the people of Israel failed to understand this providence. Therefore, in other words, they allowed Jesus, who were to become the true parent, to go on the cross. What a great sin this was. Do you understand? Do you understand? Heaven works and waits for a particular moment. And heaven has endured so many unimaginable difficulties. At that time, during the time of Jesus, the Roman Empire was such a great empire to the extent that people said all roads lead to Rome. The situation of Rome at the time was, if Jesus could stand and be recognized as the true parent, then absorbing the entire foundation of Rome would have to accept Jesus as the true parent. That was the providence that had been prepared. If that had happened 2,000 years ago, at the time of Jesus, one world centering on God, the kingdom of God on earth would have been realized. However, the Jewish people became responsible for frustrating this providence. So you can imagine that the indemnity they had to pay was extremely great. This is a historical fact. Please give me a round of applause. As I mentioned before, central figures have a responsibility, if they fail in their responsibility, the indemnity to be paid is great. It is the same for the nation. That is why at that time, the only begotten daughter could not be found at the time of Jesus. The foundation to give birth to the only begotten daughter had to be restored by heaven. And that is why God could no longer work through the Jewish people, through the people of Israel. He looked for a different people. And around that time, in Asia, there were people of righteousness in the East. God selects a people. He looked for the most righteous people, even among fallen human beings. And at that time, there was a kingdom of Han in the East. About between 400 and 800 AD, this righteous people prospered in current China. And this people, they revered heaven, they worshipped heaven, and they developed extraordinarily advanced astronomy. And that's why they were not a nomadic people. They developed agriculture. They were an agricultural people. They were the chosen people. And through them, the people of Han, of this Han kingdom, they loved white clothes. Every time they would pray and offer devotion, they would always dress in white, bow to heaven, and revere, worship heaven. That kingdom of Han, those people existed. And at that time, in China, there were many other kingdoms. Eventually, since the kingdom of Han did not like fighting, they always tried to avoid fighting, they would flee from one place to another until they reached the Korean peninsula. And they were the people who are today's Korea. Korea, when you look at the history of Korea, people say it has a 5,000-year history. And if you look at the history of Korea, you can see that there was a kingdom called Goguryeo, which vanquished many Chinese kingdoms. And that kingdom of Goguryeo endured for a millennia, about 1,000 years. However, after the downfall of the Goguryeo kingdom, the next kingdom to arise was Goryeo. They used the Go character from Goguryeo and named themselves Goryeo. This Goryeo kingdom after the downfall of the Goryeo kingdom, King Yi raised a new kingdom, and the King Yi chose the name of Joseon for the new kingdom. In the past, in Korea, and among one of the earliest kingdoms in Korea, we had Go Joseon, and using the name Go Joseon, so the King Yi took Joseon from Go Joseon to name his new kingdom, and this kingdom of Joseon unfortunately was the kingdom that was in Korea during the Japanese occupation for 40 years. And at that time, in 1945, Korea was liberated. I was born in 1943.
한국에 기독교 문화가 들어온 지
And
몇
at that,
년이 안 돼.
it was only a few centuries since Christian culture had come to Korea. However,
중에서도
among the Christian believers, there were many who did not believe that the Messiah would come on the clouds. Many believed that the Messiah would be born through a woman, would be born in the flesh. There were many spiritual groups that believe that the Messiah would be born on earth.
거기에
And among these spiritual groups, you had formation level groups, growth level spiritual groups, and completion level spiritual
거기에
groups.
책임자가
And one of the leaders of these spiritual groups
누구라고
testified to me. He revealed who I was.
내가 태어나게 될 때에
When I was born,
사탄이가
Satan
먼저 알고 와서
knew who I was and tried to kill me.
내가 태어남으로 말미암아
Why? Because of my birth, Satan's
오늘 너를 죽여야
dominion over the world would be completely ended. And that's why Satan resolved to kill me.
하늘의 입장에서 질투
From
있잖아.
heaven's point of view, this was unacceptable.
싸워 이겼어.
And I fought with Satan and was victorious.
그래서 오늘날에
That is why today
내가 있는 거야.
I stand before you.
그런데 말이야.
Now,
이시조선이 망하고
following the
해방됐는데
downfall of the kingdom of Joseon,
나라 이름이
Korea was
한국입니다.
liberated. But why is Korea called 대한민국, which means the great kingdom of Han? I'm also, the family name is Han. And it is the same Han when you say 대한민국, which is the Korean name for Korea. That Han is the same with my family name Han. Isn't this interesting?
대한민국
The Great Republic of Han. Because of the protection of God, people say the Great Republic of Korea, 만세.
그런데 해방과 더불어
Now, with the liberation of Korea,
남북이 갈렸어.
Korea became divided
민주화 공산으로
into communist North and democratic South. Communism and democracy have been in conflict ever since. And communism, which developed in the Christian sphere, communism claims that God is dead. And I was born in North Korea, way above the 38th parallel. At that time, I lived in North Korea. However, from God's point of view, if I stay in North Korea, it would be dangerous. My life would be at risk. I could even die. And if that were to happen, God's providence, which has been waiting for the only begotten daughter for 6,000 years, if the only begotten daughter is dead, even if the returning Messiah comes, they cannot form a true parents. That is why God worked to help me escape. My maternal uncle studied pharmacology at Waseda University. And after he finished his studies, he should have returned to his hometown. But he chose to go to the south and join the South Korean military. So when my family received this news, in our family, we believed, people believed that Pyongyang would become. And at that time, there was a lot of Holy Spirit phenomena happening in Pyongyang. Nobody wanted to flee or leave Pyongyang because it would become the palace of Eden. But because my maternal uncle joined the military in South Korea, only 3 ladies, my grandmother, my mother, and I, the 3 of us, only the 3 of us, we left North Korea and went to South Korea. It means God worked to help us leave North Korea and come to South Korea. And 2 years after we left North Korea, the Korean War erupted.
이런 내 스토리를 들을
So,
때
listening to the story of my life
이런 배경으로
and looking
태어난
at
사람은
this background,
나밖에 없어.
I'm the only person born with this background.
알겠나?
Do you understand?
그런데
Now,
이 독생녀의 가치가 얼마나
how great and important is the value of the only begotten daughter? There are still blessed families who do not understand the value of the only begotten daughter. This is regrettable.
더군다나
Furthermore,
너희들이
in particular,
이 진실을
you who stand here today, you need to know the truth.
너희들이 중심에 서서
I hope that you can stand and become central figures. And in order for you to fulfill your responsibility, you need to unite completely with true parents. Unite with me.
알겠지?
Do you understand?
너희들은 아직
So,
미래가
you have such a beautiful future ahead of you.
너 자신을 참 섭리에
You have the potential to greatly contribute to the providence. You can become outstanding leaders and outstanding people of talent.
그러한
You have
시간이
time.
1세들에 비해서 많아.
We have more time compared to first generations, isn't it?
그래 안 그래?
Isn't that so?
그러니까
So
잘
therefore,
자라줘야
I
되는
hope that
거야.
you can grow properly.
옛날에
In the past,
아담
Adam and Eve
사탄의
did not overcome the temptation of Satan. You should not allow the sweet temptations of Satan to overcome you.
바꿔놨잖아.
True parents have changed human history. Therefore, your responsibility
아직
consists
우리가 이 나라를 복귀하지
of
못하니까.
restoring this nation. We have still not restored this
그러나
nation.
너희들은 중심에
But
서서
I hope that you can stand at the center, become the central figures who can expand this environment so that this nation
축복을
can be returned to heaven and receive the blessings of heaven
나라.
and become a blessed nation.
그 만들 수 있는
You can create
책임을 할 수
that nation. Will you do that responsibility?
너희들은 말이야.
So,
얼마나
all of you
든든한
are
하늘을
truly
있는지 몰라.
blessed. You have a strong backing of heaven. There is nothing you need to be afraid of.
역사의 이 섭리 역사에
In the history of the providence, you know the truth. And now it is time for you to reveal this truth. Do not keep this truth to yourselves.
세계 지금
Please,
73억
in this world,
했는데
there are 7.3 billion people around the world. I even heard that there are 7.4 billion people around the world.
이렇게 기하급수적으로 늘어나는
And human population is increasing exponentially.
부모가
And it is important to tell everyone that the true parents are on this earth. If they do not know this and ascend to the spirit world, or when they understand that true parents were on this earth, how resentful,
너희들의
how sorrowful, how much will they regret and also be angry against you.
이거 심각하게
This,
받아들여야
please
돼.
take this point seriously.
너희들로 말미암아
Through you,
많은 생명을
I hope that many new lives can be saved.
너희들이 이 땅에
that
있어서
Because you are not sharing the good news,
하게 되면은
many people do not know
참 부모
that true parents are on this earth and they cannot see true parents and come to true parents.
그거 생각해 봤나?
Have you thought about this?
오늘날의 세계
Looking at today's world,
희망이 없어.
it's difficult to see any hope. Even in America, there are so many challenges laying ahead.
모든 큰 나라들이
In particular, the world's superpowers place their national interests first. They are filled with individualism and selfishness. But God does not want that. God wishes to realize one family under God. God wishes to realize one united family.
반대되는 일을 하고 있는
But
나라들이
there are nations that are going contrary to God's will.
러시아,
Superpowers like America, Russia, China, Europe, these nations are filled with self-centered individualism. You cannot find God in the midst of self-centeredness. Do you understand?
너희들이 자랑은
Your pride is
부모의
true parents.
축복받은
And you received the blessing from true parents. That is your pride.
너희들이 잘 성장하는
If you grow up well, properly, during the Aloha workshop, I told that you are all the pure water, isn't it?
오염되지 않은
You are pure water.
성정
You are the truly pure water with no pollution. You should grow as this pure water. Do you
너희들로
understand?
말미암아
Through you,
세상을 정화해
we need to purify this world.
그러한 자랑스러운
Please,
자리에 있는 거야.
you stand in this position of owner. You stand in the position of person in charge. You stand in the proud position.
이렇게 참 6, 7년 만에
For the first time in 6,000 years,
독생녀
the only begotten daughter,
부모를
the true parents,
척에서
are on this earth, and you met true parents very close. You heard their love, the message, and you received the love of true parents directly. Please do not keep it for yourselves. Do you understand? The more you share your blessings, the more you expand your blessings, the better.
알겠나?
Do you understand?
이 대답이 약해.
Please, I would like your young people. I would like to hear a louder response.
그래야지 너희들이 살아있는 거야.
Do you understand? That is how you're alive. Be loud. Will you do that?